Who should pay for emission deletes if it becomes legal? All right, YouTube. Welcome back to another video here at Trucking Life. Right now we're leaving Summerville, South Carolina. Just loaded up, scaled out. Everything's functioning, everything's good. We're fixing on getting here at 926 going westbound. Hope you all having a pretty good day. So I got to thinking a little bit on the title of the video, and I was just wondering, with all this EPA regulations going on or whatever, if they were to make it legal, who would end up paying for it? Would it be, the person who owns the truck, due to the fact that they would be deregulating that EPA stuff that was mandated when you bought it, right? Or would the government step in and give you some sort of, subsidy or whatever, so that you can pay for the delete? Which I highly, highly, highly doubt that, right? If we're just keeping it real. I mean, because you figure an illegal delete right now, they range in price, right? Wherever you go. Some places can be $5,000, some places can be $3,000, some other places can be $8,000. It just really depends on where you would go or whatever, right? So I just got to thinking, I wonder if they were to make it legal, if there would be some sort of reimbursement or whatever, because over the years, these systems have just cost people money. It's cost some people to close down their businesses, out of business or whatever, and that's no good deal, No buenos dias, so I like to say. But it was just something that came into my thought, who would be responsible for paying that? But I wanted to go ahead and give you guys a couple of key points on, upsides and downsides, and trying to look at it from a more, broader perspective, more of an angle. You know what I mean? So let me just get on here on the interstate and start rolling. We'll get to it. We got the yellow blinking light as we can go. All right. So I would say, let's look at the downsides, right? Of having the emission systems in place on, and I'm just, again, we're a trucking channel, so we'll just keep it to just the trucking stuff, right? Just semi-trucks. One of the most obvious downsides of having these systems on board is how expensive the repairs are. You go for something that you think is going to be simple, and you might end up leaving with thousands of dollars in repairs, and then you have downtime and all that stuff that you have to also factor in. If you're under a load, you might end up losing your load if you don't have enough time on it. It's just ridiculously expensive, and not to mention that they're very, very unreliable. I think it's kind of like a 50-50 thing on the environment, you know what I mean? Obviously less air pollution would be better. But I don't think anybody would really have a problem with these emission systems if they were reliable. If you hardly ever had issues with them, nothing's perfect, right? You're always going to have some sort of issue with anything. It's no different from an engine or a piece of manufacturing equipment. It's going to need maintenance at one point or whatever, But when these systems are so unreliable, where they're just constantly always giving you problems, you have to stay on top of it. You know what I mean? I think people really wouldn't have an issue with them if they weren't such unreliable systems. Even if you take it to the manufacturer, to a dealer, that they're, trained on. Even sometimes they have issues figuring out what the problem might be or whatnot. Another one of the things that those systems do is they restrict your exhaust. That's the whole purpose on why when these filters get clogged or whatever, it could cause engine damage, because the exhaust is trying to go out the engine, Essentially these engines, for people who don't know, I know I might be speaking the obvious to some of you that you do know. An engine is pretty much like a big air compressor. It's a pump. It sucks in air, and it's going to push that air out through the exhaust. And in the exhaust, if you have these, DOC, these diesel exhaust catalysts, and they get plugged up, it just creates that back pressure, and that's where it can cause engine damage. Another reason on why these systems are a downside is the fuel economy. You get less fuel economy because precisely of what I just said before. You know what I mean? So like less MPGs is no good. The biggest expense that any fleet or small carrier or owner operator such as myself has is your number one cost is always going to be fuel. So it's less profits and stuff in your pocket. And the worst part about it too is that the way these systems work is it actually takes more fuel, besides them being, restrictive, and it lowers down your MPGs. It also takes more fuel to heat up that oxidation catalyst to create the heat to be able to burn the soot. So it's like now you're just pumping out even more fuel to try to fix the problem of, the original problem on the diesel, the truck is burning diesel, and it's creating pollution. Like it's just like you're trying to fix one problem by injecting more of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Another big thing that's noticeable with these emission systems is that you have less power, and it all ties in together, right? Because that exhaust is a little bit more restrictive due to the exhaust, the oxidation catalyst, and it just creates less power, right? And then not only that, but it's an extra expense having to buy DEF, diesel exhaust fluid. It's just an added expense to already an expensive operation. You know what I mean? So, that's no good. And not only that, but I would probably say one of the biggest ones, besides the cost and all that stuff, is they can become dangerous. You guys can see where I'm rolling at right now, where I got two barriers in between with no shoulder. If my truck were to go into derate right now and it derates to at 5 miles an hour, well, now you're creating a safety hazard for everybody else that's around me, because I'm on a 60 mile an hour zone and I'm only able to go 5 miles an hour. So that exposes you to being, rear-ended or getting into an accident, due to the fact that a lot of people don't pay attention to what they're doing. You know what I mean? So it could become a dangerous situation depending on where you're at, in the middle of Atlanta traffic or Dallas traffic, or maybe you're upstate New York or something, like a big city where there's a lot of traffic or whatever. Like it could make it a dangerous situation. Now, let's look at the upsides. Well, I guess the upside could be that, it burns a little bit cleaner, a little bit less pollution. But other than that, I really don't see any other upside. Like I said before, you're trying to take care of a carbon, footprint or whatever by injecting more fuel. It's like you're trying to fix a problem on the problem that's causing the problem. That just doesn't make no sense to me. You know what I mean? So let's just look at the benefits of if it were to be deleted. So one of the biggest ones, and I would probably say one of the top ones, is no more buying expensive parts. Like even for do-it-yourselfers like me, that you do your own repairs or whatever, like you still need to buy parts, and those parts are expensive. You're talking about hundreds of dollars, and if not more major components, thousands of dollars. I mean, just a sensor can be $600, $700, $800. It's just insane on how much these parts cost. So you would already have savings just in that alone if you were able to delete it. I'm talking about deleting it legally. That's the whole point of the video. Another biggest positives on it would be you're going to burn less fuel. Why? Because your miles per gallon, due to the fact that you don't have that restriction in your exhaust anymore, and you don't have a system that's injecting more fuel to that oxidation catalyst to create heat, you're automatically going to save more fuel. So it's going to be more money in companies' pockets and everything, right? More power. Again, you're not going to have that restriction on there, so your truck's going to be able to create more power. It's going to increase the horsepower of your engine just by being able to get it deleted. A better fuel economy and all that good stuff, you know what I mean? You're going to have longer engine life because you don't have all that. For example, like on your EGR, for those of you who don't know how an EGR works, I'm talking to you guys. It pretty much recirculates part of your exhaust back into your intake. And the problem with that is that it lowers cylinder temperatures, which creates more pollution because you're not getting a complete combustion in your cylinder. A nice clean burn because you're putting part of the exhaust back into the cylinder, so it lowers your exhaust cylinder, your temperatures. And then on top of that, all that exhaust also has soot in it, so you just coat your intake with all that soot, which is not good for your engine. So by removing that system, which would be part of a delete, you would automatically see a little bit more longer engine life. The biggest benefit would be that it's illegal, right? You wouldn't have to be hiding away that you did something that you're not supposed to be doing or whatever. So that would be a plus. Your quality control and your ECM flashing. I talked about this in my previous 2 videos, guys. I'll go ahead and those 2 videos will be at the end of the video if you guys want to go check those out. But just to touch base on it a little bit, the hardest thing about deleting a truck is not so much the physical on the truck, it's the actual flashing of the ECM, the programming. Due to the fact that it would be legal, it would be software that the manufacturer is providing. So you would have some sort of quality control where, they designed the engine. They programmed the engine and everything. So it's going to have testing and everything behind it. You know what I mean? So you're just going to get a better delete just due to the fact that it's coming from the manufacturer. You know what I'm saying? So, those would be kind of the points that I would want to tell you guys. Tell me your all's thoughts on what you guys think. But, that was one question that I kind of was just thinking about this morning, when I was thinking about what type of video we were going to make today. And I was like, who would end up paying it, Another topic to get into this one, which I guess ties into it or whatever as well, is let's just say they do pull the regulations and they make it legal to not have the emission systems no more, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that everything like, for example, my truck has 07 emissions, and then you got the EPA 10 and then all the other ones, right? Like, is it going to be, if they make it legal, it's only going to be from this point and on? Like, if it's like newer trucks that are not going to have the emission systems? Or are they going to allow older trucks that have emission systems to be deleted? That's something to think about too. They might remove the emission systems, but it might just be like I knew the newer regulations, I think is going to be 2027 EPA regulations for any engine manufacturer that's making new engines. Maybe it might just affect those regulations. Maybe they won't kind of like backdate it or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like to where older trucks can get to the point that where they can get deleted or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, those are just kind of my thoughts on the downsides and the only upside, I guess you could say, or whatever. And if you delete it, you gain so much more. Just the savings alone, or not, and stress. That would be another upside, I mean, like I said before, it's a machine and it could break down whenever it wants. It doesn't care about your feelings. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, usually these trucks are pretty good. The engines are pretty decent. It's 9 times out of 10 what ends up going wrong with them, it's the emission systems. I know every time I get a check engine light with my truck, it's usually always emissions. Like, that's what I'm always constantly battling, is just the emissions all the time. So, but that's pretty much what I got for this video, guys. I just had that thought of, who would end up paying it, if it does become legal or whatever. Share your thoughts on the comments down below. If you think that it'll go through, it won't go through, we'll have to pay for it. They'll, the government will have to pay for it or whatever. Just share your thoughts down there and let me know what you guys think. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you guys like the video, give me a big ass thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get monetized, guys, so I can keep creating content. And I will catch you guys on the next one. You guys stay safe out there. Peace out.